Chapter 25. Since it was a gorgeous January morning when Daniel and Billy were on their way home from the market, Billy decided to drive along the beach for a while. He knew Daniel had been working all work and no play for a few weeks now, and the young man was probably aspiring to spend some well-deserved playtime. "How about I drop you off at the beach so you can maybe go for a swim or relax for a while?" Billy asked, slowing the pickup down and then stopping by the curbside. "What about the crates and veggies and fruits we've got in the back? Don't you want me to sort them out with you?" "Son, I've been doing it for years without anybody's help, so I think one more time won't hurt this guy one bit. Besides, I think you deserve some R&R, don't you?" "I like that, yes, but I'd like it even better if I could come back next Sunday when they've got a volleyball game going. Would that be okay?" "Sure, it'll be okay, but I want you to take it easy. You've been doing a lot more than I ever expected." Daniel was a little embarrassed. He wasn't used to receiving appreciative comments. He then smiled and said, "Okay, Billy, you better cut it out, okay? I promise I'll take it easy, okay?" Billy didn't answer, put the pickup in gear, and was about to pull out from the curbside when a Hummer passed them by. "Hey," Daniel exclaimed, "that's like my dad's limos." "Do you mean your dad is driving a Hummer?" Billy answered. "I didn't know they had limousines." "No, actually they do, but the Hummer's limos are specially made," Daniel said as he watched the car ahead of them. "Okay, well why don't you run that by me again? Your dad is driving a Hummer, right?" "No, he was first went into limo rental business, and then when the Hummers came on the market, he ordered all different Hummer limos from a manufacturer in California." Billy turned his head briefly to look at Daniel. "You mean he's got a rental garage with Hummer limousines?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah, he's got a whole fleet of these luxury cars. Actually, they're not all limos, but the Hummers were certainly a first. I was only 10 at the time he got his first Hummer limos, but I can remember how different they were." "How do you mean different?" "Well, since he ordered them to be specially fitted with different things inside, they all had a theme to them." "Why don't we get home first before you start describing what you mean by a theme?" "Sure," Daniel said musingly. He was already remembering all the different cars his dad had in his garage. As if father and son were on the same wavelength, that morning Dan, while having breakfast with Gustavo and Chippewa, was describing the Hummer limousines he had first ordered. A couple of years by and Millennium Limo was doing fine. Nothing extraordinary happened. I had a vision and then I decided to make Millennium Limo a pioneer in the industry. While reading magazines, I found a vehicle by the name of Hummer. I also read an article about Arnold Schwarzenegger and the amazing Hummer he had. It caught my attention. I saw the future of limos in that car. I called many companies and found an outlet out of California that was willing to take up the challenge. It was in 2003 that I placed my first order, and it took about 2 years to get delivery of all H2 Hummers I ended up ordering. 12 to be exact. I was having fun with these new Hummers. They were an overnight sensation. I couldn't keep them on the lot since they were booked non-stop, of course, with a driver. Large groups and small groups, it didn't matter. Everyone wanted to get a feel for what a Hummer limo was like. To differentiate each of the Hummers, since I had so many of them, I ended up coming up with a new name for each one of them. No two Hummers were alike, they were all different inside. All of them had TVs and coolers, but each one of them had a theme. At the time we were fighting a war in Afghanistan, and everyone across the country was very proud to be an American, and anything that had to do with patriotism was a big hit, so I decided to go that route. Each Hummer was fitted with specific decor in mind: tribal with a fireplace, casino with a poker table and slot machine, American Idol with a recording studio, Eagle Edition with Lambo doors. Like the Lamborghinis, when the Hummers began to arrive, it was an overnight success. From the time they were delivered, they never stopped to be in high demand. There was a waiting line for these vehicles to get booked. We were the talk of the town, and overnight Millennium Limo became an internationally recognized name. Worldwide entrepreneurs were opening companies under the name of Millennium Limo. It became the brand associated with the baddest and most exotic cars on the road at the time. "Wow, that's some story," Gustavo remarked. "And did you say that they had TVs inside some of them?" "Yes, actually all of the Hummers came with Track Vision, which is an identical system to Direct TV." "What's Direct TV?" Gustavo asked, forking out a piece of his pancake. "It's a TV cable that captures images and sound from an outside antenna." "That must have been a first." "Yes, Gustavo was actually the first to implement this inside a limousine. Totally new concept." Dan smiled. "The actual company was so happy that I got a call from them, and a nice full-page interview was published in the Wall Street Journal." "You were an overnight success, weren't you?" Gustavo said, grinning, and putting his fork down, he added, "I wonder what would have happened if you had chosen that alternative future of yours. You would have been flying all over the place, yes, but I don't think you would have been able to put all your ideas, all your talent for business management into practice. Do you ever think about that?" "Oh yes, Gustavo. I love what I am doing, but I often think what would have become of me. Had I gone for the Navy training, maybe I would have enjoyed being a pilot and flying the skies for a while. But as you said, I wouldn't have been able to get into the limo business or even have my own enterprise. I don't know what would have happened, really." Dan said reflectively as he continued eating. It is often the case, Chippewa put in. People choose a career in life where they can make a dream a reality, but when they reach the end of that path, they have no idea what else they could do with themselves. And it's often too late for them to go back to the starting line. But aren't there people who switch careers in the middle of their lives all the time? Oh yes, Gustavo, many actually do, Chippewa nodded. Yes, many do not have the stamina to turn the page on their lives. I'm sure you've heard that humans are creatures of habit. As soon as they feel comfortable with their lot, even if their situation is not exactly what they hope for, they have a hard time getting out of the rut, or that comfort zone as they call it these days. And if they have a family to think about, it's even worse, Dan remarked. I know that every time I switched jobs, careers, or started a new business, I kept my family in the back of my mind. I could no longer venture in enterprises that would compromise my family life. I trusted that God would show me the way, and he did many times. That gut feeling I had whenever I was ready to make a move led me in whatever direction was best for me and my family, and I believe God was the one who gave me stomach aches every time I wanted to do something different. Chippewa and Gustavo started laughing at the thought of God giving Dan indigestion. Dan grinned and shook his head. While they were sorting the provisions that they had bought at the market, Daniel went on to describe the Hummer limousines that his dad had in his garage. And there's the Victoria edition, and that's got one mirror ceiling with lots of fibre optics light that look like stars. That sounds like one that these superstars would love to rent, Billy commented. Any others? Yeah, I tell you, Dad, I got them all. There's the Eagle edition. Don't tell me it's got eagles, Billy said, chuckling. Not exactly, but it's got Lambo doors like the Lamborghini cars, and when the doors open, they look like wings of an eagle. That sounds like your dad has got the best of the best, doesn't he? Daniel smiled. He calls them the baddest limos in the business. Did you ever drive one of these monsters? Oh no, you need to have a special license to drive these limos, and Dad really handpicks the chauffeurs. I bet it would cost an arm and a leg to repair these babies if they ever gotten into an accident. Yep, and even Dad does most of the repairs and maintenance in our garage. Sometimes he's got to order parts for the cars he restores. You mean he restores old wrecks too? Yeah, that's actually one of his pastimes. Any one in particular? Billy asked while getting a couple of boxes of tomatoes ready to be blanched and peeled. He's got one real wild car, and that one is his prized possession, actually. How come? What sort of car is it? A 1957 Austin Princess limousine, Dan replied, starting to rinse some of the jars they would need to pickle some of the jalapeno peppers. Where on earth did your dad find it? Did he buy it from some Brit? Oh no, he found it in the wrecking yard, ready to be destroyed in the crusher. When he brought it home, he said that there was no way he was going to let that jewel of a car be smashed into scrap metal. I guess it was in a bad shape then. And then some, Daniel said. It was just a shell, an ugly carcass. I remember the mechanics in the garage couldn't believe Dad had actually bought it. They really couldn't see how they were going to bring that pile of junk back to its original condition. It was really a ghost of the past. Billy frowned as he cut and trimmed the herbs to put in the pickling jars. And I guess he did restore it in the end? Yes, but it wasn't easy. Restoring a car like that took months. I remember my brother and sister and I going to see what was happening almost every time we went by the garage. Nearly every part of it had to be either replaced or fixed. They had to order many pieces from England, and it took weeks before we could actually see a car come out of the wreckage it once was. And now it's a showpiece in my dad's fleet. It's really a beautiful car. Maybe I'll have to drive up to your place one day and have a look at it, Billy said pensively. Secretly, Billy was sad because he knew the day when Daniel would leave him would soon be upon them. He also thought that he would have paid for Daniel's bus fare to return to his home in Davie, but every day that Daniel spent with him was another day of happiness. Billy had felt lonely often times before Daniel showed up on his doorstep, and now he wasn't looking forward to the day the young man would walk out of his life for good. Yeah, Daniel replied enthusiastically. That would be great. I'm sure Dad would love to meet you. You could compare recipes for making pizzas, or he could take you for a ride in one of his baddest limos. What do you think? I'd love nothing better, son, Billy replied, turning away from Daniel. He didn't want him to see his teary eyes.